Welcome to the LeggLife podcast. My name is Adam.
My name is Sherry.
Sherry Beth, what episode is this?
162.
Okay, you guys, listen. We have not uploaded an episode since May 31st, I think it was.
Whoops.
We took unintentionally the entire month of June off. But we are back, gosh darn it. And we are back with a vengeance. Because this is something that we have wanted to do for a while. So a couple of years ago, we did a series here on the LeggLife podcast where for several weeks, we looked at the topic of relationships. So we talked about communication, we talked about love, we just talked about lots of things that all had to do with relationships.
Yeah.
And ever since then, we thought, man, we really loved that series, but we haven't done that again here on the podcast. All the podcasts have sort of been standalone episodes.
Mostly because we couldn't figure out another series to do.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of different ideas, but we never had one where we thought, you know what, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, after taking a month off and coming back, we thought, you know, this would be a really great time to do a series.
Mr. Big Brain over here came up with a good series.
Also known as Adam Joseph Legg. You can call me Mr. Big Brain or Mr. Adam Joseph Legg. Either one's fine with me.
You answered both?
I answered to both. Hey, Mr. Big Brain. I'm like, is that me? And so here's what we're going to do. For at least the month of July.
Maybe into August.
I would love to do July and August. We are going to do a series that is called Things I Wish I Knew Before ... And we are starting with Things I Wish I Knew Before I Was Married. And so obviously in future weeks, we will talk about other aspects of life where there's things that I wish I knew before, whatever it is. But I think that one of the things I'm excited about with this series is that, and we'll actually touch on this in this episode, is that we as people are always growing and changing and evolving. And in the moment we think we know best, or we think we have it all figured out, and then we get down the road and it's like, man, I wish I knew this before I did that.
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of part of life.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to talk about over the next several weeks. But we're starting with a big one. We're starting with marriage. Now, some of the things that we're going to talk about are things that we've touched on in past episodes. Maybe we've touched on in YouTube videos. But as we sat down together and just sort of talked about this idea, these were the things that we came up with. It's not an exhaustive list.
No, it's just a few things that we put in our notes app.
Yeah, these were kind of like the top of mind things that we feel like, oh, when we think about things I wish I knew before I got married, these are sort of the big ones. And we're going to expand on all of them. Sherry Beth, first of all, before we jump into this episode, how are you feeling about this series?
I'm excited for it. I think it'll be good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Mostly I just really like series. I think that's just, I like book series. I like continuity. I like kind of digging into a topic and running with it. And so that's just kind of something my brain enjoys. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for the series.
I think the thing I'm most looking forward to is that I think in order to have a healthier looking forward, you have to have a healthy looking back.
Yeah.
And so to me, when I think of like, oh man, I wish I would have known this, it does a couple things. It admits that like, guess what? Don't know it all. Like
Yeah.
have made some mistakes and want to grow to be better. And so to me, like looking at this, I feel like helps me want to grow to be better. Because there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about in here that maybe we haven't done right over our first 19 and a half years of marriage. But like, I want to do all these things better as we go forward.
Yeah, but I think that there's also grace in doing the best that you know to do at the time.
Oh, 100%. And we're going to actually, there's a couple topics that we're going to touch on today that actually will tie to that.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Should we just jump in?
Sure.
All right, Sherry, you have the notes. So what do we got? What do we got as the first one?
Do we want to jump around, or do you just want to go down the list?
I say go just down or you choose.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Then
All right, the first one on the list is the percentage of effort.
All right, so here's what we mean by that. I'm sure that many of you have heard this. I've heard this as well, that it's like each person gives 50%, then, you know, you have 100% of a marriage. And then some people say, well, no, you shouldn't give 50%. Each of you gives 100%. I actually think both of those are stupid.
I think both of those are wrong.
I know I know the intent behind that saying.
Yeah.
But the thing that I wish I knew before we got married is how many times in marriage that I would have the capacity to give 0 and you would have to give 100, or you had the capacity to give 0 and I'd have to give 100. Or there's days where, listen, Sherry, we can both give like 3.5% and we'll make up the rest later and we're going to be okay with that.
Right. We will meet each other where we're at, and that is just going to have to be good enough.
So I think that, you know, I don't know. I think that when you think of marriage, or at least when I thought of marriage, it was, we're both tugging on the same rope, right? We're pulling together for this marriage. And obviously a lot of times that is true. There have been a lot of times in our 19 and a half years where I do feel like both of us have been giving just a ton. And it's like, man, this is really going great. We're both in a place to give that. But there's been a lot of times when that's not the case.
Right. What happens when, and you know, we've had this conversation when I was very, very sick and you had been taking care of me for so long and you had nothing left to give and you were exhausted and you had nothing left to give, and I had very little. I hadn't given anything either, and I had very little left to give myself, and we were both exhausted. What then? I mean, neither one of us have 100% to give. Neither one of us had 1% to give. What do?
It's one of the places where, as you were just talking about that, I thought about the phrase you used kind of in the intro of this about the importance of like having grace with yourself and with others. I think that this is one of the places that's so important.
Yeah.
Because there have been times in our marriage. Sorry, guys, I'm seeing a little kitten paw.
He wants to be in here so
he wants
bad.
to be in here with us, and we've locked him out because he's a terror. But I see his little kitten paw coming under the door like, you guys forgot me. Sorry.
Poor
anyway,
baby.
I think that this is one of those places where you have to say that there's times in marriage where, like, I can't give the percentage that I need to. You can't give the percentage that, like, you need to or that I need you to. But we're going to have grace with each other in that, because I think what happens if you don't is like cynicism builds up,
right,
and resentment builds up.
Right. I know that you're still in this marriage. You know that I'm still in this marriage, but I have nothing to give you. You have nothing to give me. And we just have to be okay with that.
Yeah. And so I think the percentage is thrown out because I think that, like, and the problem is not just seasons. Like, there's a day where it's like, man, we'll have a day where it's like, gosh, we both gave it all. And the next day it's like, Sherry, like, I don't know what's going on, but like, I got nothing to give.
Right.
Like, I just don't. Yet we still show up for each other, and we still believe the best in each other. It's not like, oh, there goes Adam being lazy again, not giving anything again.
Right.
Like, you know, it's like, because we know that we're both showing up for each other, no matter what the percentage is. So like, percentage aside, because I think that, there's been a lot of days where it's like, listen, I've got nothing.
I just think, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but like, I just think that throwing the percentage thing out is probably the healthiest thing for a marriage. Like, just be in it or don't. And if you're not in it, then leave. If you're in it, then be in it. And like, what you can give is what you can give, and communicate that with your partner.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, now, you guys, we are kind of off the script because we didn't talk about communication on our list. Yeah. But I do think it's a part of all of this. Yeah. Because I think that, like, that's important to say, like, I'm having a day. Yeah. You know, and like, I can't today. Like, I just can't today.
Yeah. Like, I do think that every single one of the things on our list involves communication.
At some level. 100% agree. All right, Sherry, should we move on to the next one? Because it's kind of tied to this. Yeah. And this is something we've actually talked about, I think, on podcasts a lot. I think on in vlogs a lot. I think this is actually one of the biggest ones when I think of what I wish I knew before I got married. And I think if you and I are honest, we knew all of these to some extent. But
I don't think that we knew to the extent that
we wish we did.
We wish we did.
100%. Yeah. And this is one of those ones, because this one sounds like it should. So this is one where what I wish I knew was that the person you're with is not going to, nor should they, meet every one of your needs.
Right.
So
They should not be your end all.
So a lot of times you hear, or I have heard, that your spouse is the person who meets like all of your needs, like your list of needs. This is like your person. This is the person that God has crafted for you, and you two fit together like a perfect puzzle. So where you're weak, she's strong, and it's just like this is the person that's going to meet all your needs. Sherry, I believe, tell me if I'm true, for 19 and a half years, we have had genuinely a strong marriage.
Correct.
Have I at any point in our marriage met all of your needs?
Absolutely not.
I think that's one of the reasons that we've had a strong marriage.
I think so too.
Is that we can say, because the exact same is true. Like you have met so many of my needs, and I have tried to meet so many of your needs.
Yeah. But
to me, it is completely unfair to put the expectation on Sherry that you have to meet this entire list of needs, because what happens when inevitably they don't, or they fail, or something happens, like bitterness and cynicism and resentment, and like, well, then you're just not giving your 100%.
Right.
You're just not doing whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I will say, I do think that you are my person. I do think that we are like puzzle pieces that fit. However, I also think that, like any other puzzle, you have other sides. And I think that there are other puzzle pieces that fit. And I think that to expect this person to fit all of your sides is just unfair. And I think, and we've talked about this, Adam is an extrovert, I am an introvert. Mm-hmm. To expect me to meet all of Adam's extroverted needs is so unfair for an introvert. And that would be death for you. That's death for me.
Yeah.
I do not have the capacity to meet all of his extroverted needs. On the flip side, he does not have the capacity to meet all of my introverted needs.
Yeah.
Because he is an extrovert. He needs to be around people. I need to be not around people. And if I have him not around people as much as I need to not be around people, that is death for him. And that's not fair.
Yep.
And so, like, he needs to be around his friends that are also extroverted. He needs to be around crowds. He needs to be wherever. And it's just not fair for him to, like, sit at home quietly and read a book. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
And then so many other reasons. Like, he needs to have other friends and other people who can meet other needs for him. And vice versa.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes we're so afraid of, like, oh my gosh, I saw Adam out at a concert and he wasn't with Sherry. Oh my gosh, I saw Sherry out on I was trying to think of where you'd go by yourself, a bookstore, and she wasn't with Adam because you're normally
me and Auburn sitting at home reading and not saying a word for 3 hours.
But it's like, I think that people are so afraid of, like, the perception of something. It's like, oh my gosh, I saw them and they weren't together. Something must be horribly wrong in their marriage. No, or we're giving each other space for exactly who we are.
Right, to be the people that we were made to be.
Yet here's the thing, this is what I love. But one of the things I think that we do well is we still continue to invite each other into spaces that maybe we wouldn't feel comfortable, and give the other the option to say yes or no. So an example of this, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, is my love for concerts and live music. Mm-hmm. I would, and I have seen everybody from Snoop Dogg to Adele to the Vienna Boys Choir to, like, just, the list goes on. I love concerts. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter the genre, doesn't matter the artist. I am there. And it's actually getting worse.
It's getting worse as I get older.
Live concerts are not enjoyable because of the noise, because of the crowd, because, like, even anxiety and panic attacks in, like, a crushing setting.
I went and saw one of my very favorite bands and literally had to leave because I was able to go to the actual band that I wanted to see, but their opening bands, who I also love, I had to leave halfway through their set because I had one of the biggest anxiety attacks I've ever had in my life.
Of your life.
But, right. And because of the crowd, because of the noise, because of the heat, because it was just, there was a lot happening and my body cannot handle it.
But I know Sherry doesn't like going to concerts. However, I still invite her to concerts. An example of this is that here in just like a week and a half,
July
12th, Vanessa Carlton is in Anchorage. Now, Vanessa Carlton is somebody I love, somebody I know you love.
I love.
But it's a concert. And when I first asked you, I thought, well, I think Sherry's going to say no to this. But I still wanted to ask. I didn't want to be like, hey, Sherry, I'm going to see Vanessa Carlton. I know you hate concerts. Too bad. This is my extrovert thing. Like, I still give you the invitation to like join me in those things. And that was one of the concerts you were like, actually, yeah, I want to go to that.
It's outdoor, which will help with space, which will help with airflow.
But my thing is that even if it wasn't outdoor, even if it was like the kind of thing that I was sure you would say no to,
yeah, you would still invite me.
I still invite you and give you the option to say, actually, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
And I love that we both have that we both have the option to say, actually, not for me. But that when you say, no, I don't really want to go to that concert.
But you could still go.
That's what I was just going to say. What you're not saying is, oh, and by the way, you can't go to that concert either.
No, I'm like, who would you like to take with you?
Yeah, and so I think that is the thing, that we both understand each other, and respond accordingly. In fact, the next one I want to jump to, you asked me earlier if I want to go down the list or jump around. The next one I want to go to, I don't think is next on the list, but I think it goes so well it flows into this, if that's okay.
Sure.
Did you have any more thoughts on that topic? The meeting of needs?
Not really. I think. Not really.
Okay. You sure?
Yes.
All right. You look like maybe you did, and I just wanted to...
I feel like there's a tie-in, but not really, and I feel like we can sort of talk about it with some of the other ones.
Okay. So the next one I want to go to, and it might mess up your order of list.
That's okay.
Is the importance... The thing that I wish I knew before we got married was how important it is to be and we've talked about this before, the world's foremost leading expert on the person you're with.
Yeah.
So I believe that one of my jobs in this world, is to be the world's foremost leading expert on Sherry. Not just Sherry as she is today, not just Sherry in her past, not Sherry in the future, but like all of you. The things that make you light up, the things that make you come alive, as well as the things that like crush your spirit and your soul. Like, I want to know all of it so I know what to avoid, what to do more of, like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All of that stuff. And
vice versa.
And vice versa. That's exactly right. And so I think that...
I want to know all of those things about you.
And I think that what that does is that allows us to understand, going back to the last one, how to meet needs. So, the Vanessa Carlton concert. I know that concerts are an anxiety-filled space for you.
Yes.
But this was a concert, just like you said, it's outside, so it's open air. Because it's outside, we don't have to stand up front in the crowd. We can stand back some where there's more open space.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of reasons that I thought, actually, knowing Sherry like I know her, this may be something that she would want to say yes to.
And I did, and I even said, okay, but if it gets too much for me, I can go hang out at Sub-Zero, which is one of our favorite bars nearby, and I'll just get a drink and like hang out by myself, and you can finish the concert and then come meet me later. Like, I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. And you know, if the crowd or the concert is just too much for me, I can peace out and you can finish the concert, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And so, because it is outdoor, because it is, you know, it's going to be easy, like in and out, I'm okay with that. I don't think that I can do indoor concerts anymore.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
based on my last indoor concert.
So here's what I would say on that. I'm going to go back to like the whole knowing each other. Mm-hmm. I'm going to disagree. Oh. I think you can do indoor concerts. I don't think you can do indoor concerts where it is all standing and we are up front and it's kind of crushing. Because even at the Dashboard concert, where the anxiety attack really set in was when we were up front and when the crowd started to push in and there was like no space and it was getting hotter and it was really loud.
Yeah, that's true.
After you stepped outside and we took a break, when we went back in, we stood at the back where there was like a lot of room.
Yeah.
And you did okay.
And I did okay.
But so I think
because I could feel the air from the outside, and I could move around.
Yep. And some other concerts we went to a couple years ago, a Macklemore concert. at a packed arena, but we all had, it was like in seats. It was like an arena.
It was the hockey arena.
And you did great there.
And I did fine there. Yeah,
and
that's true.
So I think that
if I have my own space, then I think
that's
I'm okay.
what it is. If you have your own space, it's when other people are encroaching on your space that you start to feel that.
I don't like people in my bubble.
You don't like people. Period. You could just say you don't like
I
people.
don't like people.
Yeah. But those are the things I mean about like knowing each other.
Yeah.
And I think that what's also important is when you know somebody, there are oftentimes that you can recognize things in them before they recognize it in themselves.
Yeah.
And you and I have both done this.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's been times that you have seen me and you're like, oh, you need to go for a drive. Or like, you need to go to just walk around Target. Like, you need some, or you need to like call Allison and go to Riley's and have a drink.
You need to people.
You need to people.
Right.
Just like go.
You've been just with me for too long. Like, you need to be around other people. Go.
Yeah, so you see that.
Yep. Then you've been around people for too long. You need to not people.
Yeah.
Let's go.
That's exactly right. And
yeah.
I just think that so much of what I wish I would have known this more, because I feel like we have learned to know each other really well over the years. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I realized how important that would be at the beginning of being like the world's foremost leading expert on Sherry and you being the world's foremost leading expert on Adam, so that we know all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
What do we got next on our list? You pick.
My note was not wanting to be around them all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And I think that kind of ties into kind of what we were just talking about. I think that it's okay to not want to be around your person. That doesn't make Adam any less of my person. I think that it just means that I have other interests. I have other friends. I have other things I want to do, other people I want to see.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of ties into him not being my end all. And I think that's okay. And I think that's where some people kind of mess up and assume that they have to spend every waking moment with their person. And then they just get sick of each other and then they hate each other. And I'm like, this is not healthy.
Yeah.
I think on the flip side of that, we have seen this in friends of ours whose marriage ended as well, where they never spend any time together. They have nothing in common. And I'm like, why did you even get married? Like, what was the point of this? Because you literally never spend any time together unless you're like in your groups, like with us and with 15 other people. Like, why? What do you have in common? What do you talk about when it's just the two of you at home?
Right.
And they ended up getting divorced. And so I was like, well, nobody's shocked at this.
Yeah, there has to be a balance in that.
Right. There has to be a balance. You have to want to spend time with them, but I think you don't have to spend all of your time with them.
Yeah, and I think to me, when I read that question, when we were talking about it, where my mind went was actually in, I think sometimes this is taboo. I love you, and you know that.
Yeah.
But there are times that, like, I'm just annoyed by you.
Sure.
Like,
same.
And no, absolutely same. Where it's like, I don't even necessarily have a good reason, but like, I can't even describe it, but it's like, God, I'm just so bothered by your presence right now. Like, I don't know what it is. It's probably my own crap. It's probably not even you, but like, if I'm around you, like, I'm really going to get angry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like that sensory thing where it's like, your presence annoys me, and I think that's okay.
I think that's okay, and I think that we're both good about like voicing that.
Yes.
And I think that there have been times where I'm just like, hey, maybe you should go to Target. Hey, you should go for a drive.
Yeah.
Because your very presence is just actually obnoxious right now.
Your presence is obnoxious. And I think that, so I think that we're exactly.
It's not really necessarily any specific thing that you're doing. you're just annoying
So
me.
going back to what Sherry just said, like, I think that if you're with somebody where you say, oh, always their presence is obnoxious, that's a concern.
Right. That's maybe something to talk to a therapist about.
That's right. But which we'll talk about in a minute. But,
Right.
but also, I think it's okay to say part of a healthy marriage is the fact that there are times that you just annoy the crap out of me and I just don't want to be around you.
Right.
Love you like heck. And I'm going to be back in like 2.5 hours, but I'm going to go watch a movie by myself and eat popcorn. And that's okay. It literally has nothing to do with an unhealth in our marriage. It has nothing to do with anything going on. It just has to do with right now, I just don't want to be around you.
Right. And
That's fine.
I think that's fine. And I think that it's like, I think about like my best friend, like growing up. She and I would have these stupid fights where we would just fight about something stupid. And then we wouldn't want to see each other for like 3 days. And then we would get back together and everything was fine. And I think that is like, that's what this is. But like we live together.
Right? Yeah.
You know, but like we're still best friends, but like sometimes I just don't actually want to be around you. I need you to just go away. But we still live together.
Yeah.
And so like I just need you to go away for maybe a few hours. It's not going to be 3 days. And I know that, but like maybe just space.
Yeah, I just think normalizing the fact that it's okay to have like moments where like you just need a break from each other.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's totally fine.
I think it's healthy.
All right, the next thing you wrote on your list, I'm curious, remind me what this is about. Sherry just wrote the word therapy.
I think that it's healthy to be in therapy. And then I think that this is what we were sort of talking about when I wrote this.
So just so you guys know, I want to talk about the difference between Sherry and I right now, real quick. So I always write the notes out for our podcast. And when I write the notes, I try to give a full thought of what it is. Like, okay, so here, if we're talking about these 10 topics, like here's the full thought of that topic.
I started out literally just writing a single word. And then I was like, that's not going to work because Adam's going to read this and be like, what in the hell were we talking about? And so I did try to like fill out some.
Okay. All right, back to therapy.
Therapy, working on ourselves to make us better.
Yeah, but also sometimes, so I wanted to say one thing real quick. There's a stigma around therapy. I think it's stupid. I think that if you were having all sorts of like physical issues, you would go to the gym to get physical health. Yet for some reason, there is still a stigma around mental health issues in therapy, especially when it comes to men. I'm going to rant for a second. I cannot tell you the number of friends, women who have come to us and who have said, like, I've been trying to get my husband to go to therapy for years and he just won't. Men, get the hell over it. Get a good therapist and see them often. You're broken and that's okay. Like,
real men will fix themselves.
No. That's not true.
Will go to a therapist to get themselves fixed.
Real men will admit that they're broken and need help figuring out what fixed even looks like.
Correct.
Real men will look at themselves and say like, oh, I need help to do this.
Yes. That's where I'm going with that.
Got it. And so I think with therapy,
real men cannot fix themselves, I think is what I was trying to say. Real men need help to fix themselves.
So I think with therapy, I think that it is both personal and as a couple. I think that where therapy helps is that it can help me process things that have happened in my past that are traumatic or my present that are traumatic. And not just traumatic, just things that have led to me being who I am, sometimes not in the most healthy way. When I am the healthiest version of myself, I get to be the healthiest version of a husband for Sherry. When Sherry is the healthiest version of herself, she gets to be the healthiest version of a wife for me. And so we should be working on becoming the healthiest version of ourselves, as well as the healthiest version of Adam and Sherry. And sometimes that is individual therapy, sometimes that is couples therapy, sometimes that is family therapy if you have kids. But whatever that looks like, I think we need to be taking steps to become the healthiest versions of ourselves individually and collectively.
Right.
And I think that too often, and I've seen this in like pastoral counseling, all that kind of stuff. I think too often people wait too long to ask for help.
They wait until it's nearly or completely irreparable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, at this point, like therapy would have helped 5 years ago it's reached a point where it's like now it's so broken that like even this can't help.
Right.
Or the odds are it won't help. And I just think that therapy is also preventative.
Yeah.
Where it can help the future be better, not just heal from stuff in the past. It can help, like I said, I think it can help me be a better version of myself, a healthier version of myself, a more self-aware version of myself, which in turn helps me be a better, healthier, more self-aware husband and part of this team we're on.
Yeah.
What are your other thoughts on therapy? So therapy, what is it like for women? Because I kind of addressed like the men. It seems to me there's still this stigma. I think some of that's breaking because I feel like younger generations are more okay talking about mental health, which I'm so thankful for.
Yeah.
But like, what do you feel like the stigma is around therapy for women or for wives?
I mean, I think that it's still there, and I think definitely being raised in the Midwest. I don't know. I haven't lived in the Midwest for over half of my life now.
It's crazy. Gosh.
But for the first half of my life, I did live in the Midwest, and it was very looked down upon. And so I don't know if that's still true because, like I said, I haven't lived there for over half of my life now. But it was definitely like looked down upon, and I only I don't know. There was definitely a stigma around it, and I think that it's healthy, and I think that it's something that every single person needs to be involved in.
I agree with that. I don't think there is a person who is listening right now that would not benefit from a regular connection with a therapist, because I think it's impossible to live in this world, 2025 Earth, and not have things that we need help on, not have like baggages that we've picked up along the way that we need help unpacking.
Right. I don't think that there's a single person alive who hasn't experienced some kind of trauma that they need to work through and that you can work through on your own. I just don't think that that's true. And I actually, one of my favorite things is following therapists on like Instagram and TikTok that are like, I just saw my therapist, and they're like also a therapist, and they're like, I'm like, yes, because they also need therapy. Like they realize that too. And so it's just, I don't know. I just think that it's something that everybody needs.
Because I don't think that therapy is always just about trauma. I think that therapy sometimes is about helping you and helping me and helping all of us address maybe unhealthy patterns that we've picked up along the way.
Yeah.
Or different like identity message that we've picked up through life that lead to certain things.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's like, oh, well, I've never experienced like this huge traumatic thing. That's all right. There's still parts of us that need like help and unpacking. Sure, let me ask you a question, because you talked about what it was like, the stigma around it growing up. Mm-hmm. When you think about like your girlfriends today, like the way that things maybe have changed in the modern like age, do you feel like it's more acceptable to have conversations about like having a therapist? Has that stigma largely changed, do you see? Like when you talk to your girlfriends, are things better? Are they worse? Are they the same?
I think that most of the girlfriends that I talk to have therapists.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think the stigma has definitely changed, at least in my circle. Yeah, I think that it's...
And I think it's changing for guys too. In fact, I have a good friend of mine who started going, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago to a therapist that I recommended, a guy in town that I just absolutely love and trust. And he started going there. And this is like a big masculine guy that you wouldn't look at him and think like, oh, that dude's got a therapist. But he goes, my friend loves him. And my friend just left Alaska, moved out of Alaska. And one of the last times I talked to my friend, we were like grieving the loss of his therapist. And I just remember how, it's going to sound so weird, I remember how happy that made me because of being able to have such an honest conversation about mental health and about the importance of therapy, and even just like his desire to be like, oh man, I've got to find somebody, you know what I mean? Like now that I've tasted this, I have to have it. And so I've got to find somebody new.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like it's changing even for guys, but I still think there's this masculine stigma that like, you've got to be tough enough. You've got to be strong enough. You've got to be like, do it yourself. And it's just not true.
It's just not true. And I think that, the true measure of being tough enough and strong enough is admitting that you're not. I think that that's, I don't know. To me personally, I think that is sexier. Yeah. I think.
Whoa.
Whoa.
So if you want to be sexy, get a therapist.
But I think that it is. I think that it's more masculine to be like, you know what, actually, I need help with this.
Oh, I completely agree. In fact, like I completely agree with that. I think that it is such a healthy mark when somebody's like, actually, yeah, I was like processing that with my therapist. It's like,
it's being more in touch with your masculinity, more in touch with your femininity, more in touch with your humanity to realize that you need help to process everything.
Did not think we'd spend this much time on the therapy one. But I do think, like, thinking back to like even the title of this, like things I wish I knew before we got married.
Yeah.
Number one is that prioritize therapy before things get so bad that even therapy can't help.
Yeah.
But also, for me as an individual, the best way that I can love Sherry is to become the very best version of myself. And sometimes that requires professional help.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hire a personal trainer for physical stuff. And sometimes it requires professional help with like mental and life stuff as well.
Yes.
All right, Sherry, what's the next one? Is it a one word or is it a saying?
It's a saying.
Whoa.
That was the only one word.
Okay.
Jerk. The next one is that you have no say in who your person becomes. The changes that they will go through. And I think that is huge. I think this is one that we both kind of talked about and wanted to put on the list for sure.
Just so you know, this is the one I'm the most excited to talk about.
Yeah, so I just, I think this one is really big. And I think that, we've kind of joked about, like, you've been married to 20 different women, blah, blah, blah. But, like, it's true. Like, the person that I was 20 years ago is dead and gone. And I am a completely different person. And you are a completely different person.
Yep.
And I have loved every version of you.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Right.
And you have loved every version of me, thankfully. But I think that is, and I think that that's something that you kind of like sort of know, like going into a marriage, like, yeah, this person's going to change and grow. I mean, hopefully like you realize that people change and grow, but like, I don't think you realize the extent. And I certainly didn't. And I think that, we were 23 and 25 when we got married. Mm-hmm. And I just think that there is so much life, I think, that just happens, and you get beat down and you get built up, and you I think that we're just completely different people, and you don't have a say in what happens. We had zero say in the things that beat us down, and we had zero say in the things that built us up. And we've I think that there's some things that we have done for ourselves, and I think that there's things that were done to us that we had no say in. And I think that you just choose to love the person that they are becoming.
Yeah, the thought that's in my head about this topic is that you don't just marry, you don't just make a commitment to the person that they are, you're making a commitment to the person they become. And just as you said, you have no say over the person they become. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. When we got married, if I was saying, Sherry, the version of you today is the one that I'm marrying, which is true. Like you're standing there at the altar, you're looking that person in the eye, and who you're marrying is the person you see in front of you. But the reality is you are still married to the person that they are turning into. And that person, I would argue, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. I think that we are more in love today than we have ever been.
I would agree with that.
However, I'm not sure that we are not more different today than we have ever been.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like different as people. I actually mean that the differences between you and I in some very core things of life. Like, I think that when we first got married, we had a more similar faith. I think that our faith is different.
I think our faith is different. I think politically we're different.
Politically we're different. We have both changed. But here's the thing. We haven't only... And I think that maybe there's like this misnomer that like, oh, we're both going to grow together, which means we're going to become the same. We have grown together while both becoming different.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
I didn't expect that either. And I love you more than I did 20 years ago. But yeah, I think that you are just a very different person. And I think that the me from 20 years ago maybe would not love the person you are now. But the me from now loves you more because of who I am now. And I think we even put that in our vows, actually. We wrote our own vows, and I think we even put something about that, like loving who you are and who you will be.
Interesting. But I think that that's one of those things that I just didn't...
Look at us thinking ahead.
I just didn't think... I wish I would have known that like your commitment is to the person Sherry in all of her forms and all of like her growth and evolution and changing.
Yeah.
And not just my commitment is to you as long as you stay just like this.
Right.
I think that sometimes that is the case.
Right.
Sometimes people, it's like, whoa, wait a second, like, you are not who I married. Yeah, no crap. That's the point.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
now,
hopefully you are growing and changing. If you're not, that means you're dead.
Yeah, but also, I want to say one thing. Sometimes, and we're going to touch on this at the very end, so I don't want to go too much into this, but sometimes people change to the negative to the detriment of you.
Yeah.
And sometimes people change in a destructive way.
Yeah.
What I am not saying is that, oh, you're married to the person, like no matter, even if they become like an abusive asshole, well, you're married to that version of them. That's not what I'm saying. And we're going to touch on that at the end. So let's just like, we're going to hit pause on that.
Table that for a second.
We're going to table that for a second. And we're going to come back to that.
Yeah.
But I think that as long as I can look at you and say like, man, I believe that Sherry is genuinely trying to become the very best version of herself and the version that she believes is the most true to who God created her to be. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm committed to that.
Right.
And that has meant that we have grown different in many ways while at the same time growing closer and more in love.
Right. And that's what I was going to say is I think that even though our differences have maybe widened, I think that we're becoming more of our authentic selves.
Yeah.
And I think I can appreciate that in you and I can love that more in you because I love seeing you become more of your authentic self. Mm-hmm. And I think that you love seeing me become more of my authentic self, even if it's a little more different from your beliefs.
100%.
And so right. So I think that's okay.
Love it.
Yeah.
What do we got next, Sherry?
Next. Oh, we did that one.
Okay.
Oh, the importance of keeping it fun.
Oh, man. So, we genuinely have, and this goes back to us, like, I really believe that we're in love. I think that we are happier than we've ever been. But I think that one of the reasons for that is that our entire marriage, we have prioritized fun.
We truly actually like each other.
Yeah.
And we have seen marriages where I don't know that they actually like each other. And I don't want to be in that kind of a marriage. And I am so thankful that I actually like Adam as a person. And I like spending time with him. I like goofing around with him. I like being silly with him. I I think that that's so important, and I think that it's important to be able to like be serious together too, and we
totally.
can have serious times and we can have serious discussions. But I think it's also just so important that we can just sing stupid songs in the car, and we can have water fights, and we can, you know what I mean? Like, I think that it's just, we've been married for 20 years and we still just
almost 20 years.
Almost
Sherry.
20 years in September. And we can still like goof around and have fun together.
I think most of the time, dating is really fun, right? You're in the dating phase and it's really fun.
You're all Twitter-pated.
And then I think there's the marriage and it's really fun. And there's the newlywed season and it's really fun. And I think that sometimes what happens is that life happens.
You settle in,
but also like you're kind of beaten down by the hardness of life, you know? And that's just the reality of it, is like, man, life just sometimes frickin' sucks and it's so heavy.
And we have certainly had those seasons.
Without question. We've had seasons where it has not been fun.
Where it is hard.
Where it's hard. But I think that it's really important to not let that fun element die.
Yeah.
That there have, like, during seasons where it just hasn't been fun, when it's been really hard, it's important to say, man, we really need to get back to the fun, rather than just saying, well, I guess that's over. Like, I guess we've moved on to the part of marriage where, like, it's just not fun anymore.
Right.
The thing is, though, is I think sometimes that takes intention. And I think it takes honesty. I think it takes honesty to, like, look at your marriage and say, gosh, I don't know where it happened, but this sort of stopped being fun.
Yeah.
And I miss having fun with you. You know, I miss that. And so, like, could we do that? Let's try something. Let's go do something that we did as a date, on a date as kids. Let's go, like, just like figure out what is fun and start doing.
Go back to Denny's and stop at a gas station for a gas station Rose.
That was our very first date, Denny's and a gas station Rose. And here's the thing, you guys, when we went back to Denny's just a few months ago, we had so much fun because what we were doing was like reliving some of those memories from like our early dating days.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just think that the element of fun is so important. I wish I would have known, again, going back to the series, I wish I would have known how important that was, but also how much life will fight against that.
Yeah.
And I think that when fun goes away, what happens is that you stop enjoying the presence of the other person, and then it starts to become like a duty, and eventually someplace along the line you kind of end up as glorified roommates.
You said duty.
Okay. You freaking junior hire. You said duty. Oh my Lord.
But this is how we keep it fun. Now, here's the thing. I do realize that we are...
You said do. Sorry. So stupid. So dumb.
I do realize that we are in a unique position that not everybody is in because we don't have kids.
That's true. Yep, that is true.
And I do realize, like, kids can be fun, but they're also a lot of work.
Kind of all-consuming.
Right. And so I do realize that, like, we have an element of our marriage that a lot of people with kids don't have, because we have the space to be silly, where maybe you don't if you've got a lot of kids. But I still think that it's important to work that in. And you can be silly with your spouse in the same way that you're silly with your kids. Because I know that you're silly with your kids.
Yeah.
And you can be silly with your spouse too. You can include your spouse with that. And I think that that's important too. I think that it's maybe even more important to keep the relationship with your spouse healthy than it is with your kids.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. In fact, so we're in this interesting stage of life right now where we're in our 40s and we have friends whose kids are starting to graduate high school. Mm-hmm. And so this is, so growing up, when we both saw this in our early days of marriage, where we saw older friends, once the kids graduated high school and moved out, they would start getting divorces But now we're seeing friends of ours that are our ages whose kids are getting graduated, moving out, and our friends are getting divorces. Right. Because along the way, what has happened is that like somewhere we stopped being married and we started only being parents. And now the kids are gone and I'm no longer in that like the active parenting stage. And I don't know how to be like your husband or your wife. I don't know how to
be in a relationship with this person that I'm now living with because my entire focus has been on my children.
That's right. And so I think that what I've seen is that it's just so important. We've had friends that have told us this so many times that like the best thing they can do for their kids is ensure like the happiest marriage.
Yeah.
But also to realize that the day comes when those kids move out and you're stuck looking at that person.
Right. And so it's so much more important to keep the relationship with your spouse than it is with your kids, because your kids are going to peace out. They are, hopefully.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's the goal, right? Is for your kids to be able to leave, but like you've got to keep that relationship with your spouse.
And I think that fun is such an important element of that because like none of us would want to have our primary relationship in our life. We're like, oh, that person's no fun. Right? Like if it was like a not a fun...
they're such a drag.
Right? Like the friend... Think of just the friendships that we're the most drawn to. It's the friends that like, man, when we're with them, it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
Right? It's just so much fun. And I want that to be true about like the person I'm spending my life with as well. The most time with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think fun. And fortunately, this is one that I think that we've been good at. I just didn't realize how much work it would take and how much life would try to like crush the fun and just get us into the routine of like boring and normal.
Yeah. I think this actually feeds into our next point.
Okie dokie.
The importance of being each other's primary team member.
Yeah.
More so than children, more so than parents, more so than friends, more so than bosses, more so than everybody else in the entire world. We need to be each other's primary team member. Yeah. I am on your team more than I am on anybody else's.
I think that, a lot of times when Christian couples get married, there's this verse in the Bible that talks about like you will leave your father and mother and you will like cleave to your spouse, right? And so it's like the leave and cleave idea that you're leaving one and you're like joining with another. But I think that a lot of times what we try to do is we try to keep like one foot in like, oh, I'm going to like kind of live in this friend group, or I'm kind of going to live with like this really strong relationship with my parents. And I'm also going to try to like be like a good husband to Sherry. And so what I'm trying to do is trying to like cleave to 3 things, right? Or 4 things or 5 things or 1 thing. Where in the reality is like, I'm leaving things so that I can better connect with you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you don't have a relationship with your parents. It doesn't mean you don't have a relationship with your friends. But it means that, like, I'll use a sports illustration. It means that, like, the jersey you're wearing, the team that you're on, is now Team Adam and Sherry. It is no longer Team Adam and my mom, Nita, or Adam and his dad, Terry, or Adam and, like, his friend group and Sherry. It is like my jersey has changed. I am on a new team. Now, I still have all of those other relationships. All of those other relationships are important, but none of those other relationships are primary.
Right.
And the number of issues that I have seen because people were not willing to break from those relationships and not break them, but no longer have them be primary. I have seen spouses get so resentful. I've had guys that have told me in lots of different situations and places and be like, man, I wish that my wife talked to me half as much as she talks to her mom. Or like you know what I mean? It's like there's that we never change jerseys. We try to like live in that old way. And I just think it's so important for your person to know that they are your primary.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yep. And I just, we've had conversations with friends of ours who it's just like, we kind of almost become their therapists, where it's like, they're on the rocks because he only wants to talk to his dad about stuff and she only wants to talk to her sister about stuff, and they never actually talk to each other about stuff. And it's just like, if you guys would talk to each other for half of a second, you could probably work this stuff out. But
Yeah.
like, you only ever want to talk to your stupid family member. Stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop. Like, talk to each other. Like, you've got to be on each other's team before anybody else. And it's just, I love my sister. And she is one of my best friends.
Yeah.
But I have got to be able to talk to Adam about things before I talk to my sister about things.
Yeah. Well,
And-
maybe not necessarily before, because I think that there are some things where it's like if there was something that we were going through, I think it's important to have people in each of our lives, and we do have this, where it's
Yes.
like, man, I need to process this with Lisa, or I need to process this with somebody else, and then like I need to talk about this with Adam. But
True.
I think the difference is like
If I'm only ever
If you're
going
only
to
ever.
Lisa first
Yep.
and never coming to you and just letting this resentment build,
Yep.
then I think that's an issue. And then I'm like completely shocked when my marriage falls apart. And I'm just like, well, why? Well,
Yeah.
because I never actually put you first.
Yeah.
And so I think, and that's where people just screw up all the time. And so, or they put their parents first, or they, just whatever. Or
Yeah.
they put their kids first.
And I think that primary thing is not just in the early days of marriage. I think that can be,
Yeah.
I think that can be where it's the hardest because it's so new. I think that's where it was the hardest for us. But I think that while it does get easier over time, it never stops being important.
Yeah.
Like there's never not been a day in the last 19 and a half years that I haven't been on like primarily like Team Adam and Sherry.
Right.
Right? Like that doesn't change.
Right.
All right. What do we got
Yeah.
next?
Our next one is our bonus.
Okay,
That
so-
we were going to discuss.
Oh man.
So those were all of our points. Now we have a bonus point. And this one is an interesting one, and it's something that I think is so important, and I think that it's something that certainly my upbringing did not prepare me to think was okay. And I definitely think that it is. Especially walking with so many friends in the last 5 years.
Yeah, this is one, like, even thinking about it, man, I just feel like emotions at the surface.
Yeah.
This is one that has been very close to home. We have been in the middle of this situation
Over and over and over and over again.
here's what I'll say. In the last number of years of marriage, I think we've been in this situation with friends more than I ever expected we would in our entire life.
Yeah.
And this is just one of those things that just breaks my heart. And I think where my emotions are at in this is that I have seen the damage that it has caused to people we love.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard to watch. And the thing that I wish I knew, that we wish we knew before we got married, is that divorce can be okay. Now, here's the thing.
Yeah.
We are very thankful that has not been a part of our story.
Yeah.
Right? We're very thankful for that. But we've had a lot of friends that is now a part of their story.
And I wish it had been earlier.
I was going to say the vast majority of them, not all of them, but the vast majority of them have been very similar situations where they're people who were raised in the church or involved in the church. And she, the wife in numerous relationships,
Yeah.
stayed way beyond when I think was healthy for her to stay, because she had this belief in her head that I am a Christian and I can't get divorced, with the exception of maybe unless he hits me.
Or cheats on me.
Right? That like he has to do something that crosses this invisible line to make it okay. That certain types of abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, those aren't good enough types of abuse to justify me leaving. And we have watched so many of our friends slowly die to who they really are, because they were stuck in a marriage they didn't think they could leave, because they thought they had these invisible chains on that forced them to stay. Now, here's what I want to say. I think sometimes divorce is used as a tool too soon. I think there are marriages that maybe end before they should have. They definitely do.
Yeah.
But I think what we have seen in most of those situations is actually not that it ended too soon. It's that it kept going too long. And the damage that is done to the person is so much worse than if it would have happened earlier.
Yeah.
And so earlier we talked about as people change, right? That we were saying, oh, you love them in all of their versions. And we talked about this then, but I just want to kind of re-hit this home. What we are not saying is that if somebody is a narcissist, if somebody is emotionally abusive, certainly physically abusive, spiritually abusive, financially abusive, any of those things, verbally abusive, that we're not saying that if somebody, it's like, oh, he was really a sweet guy and now he's like an abusive asshole, but like I need to love him in this, and because we're Christians, like we don't believe in divorce. That is absolutely wrong.
Abuse is abuse is abuse. It doesn't matter if he's physically beating you or verbally beating you. It's abuse, and you need to go.
You guys, the number of friends that we have had that have told us, I wish he would have hit me, because then I felt like it would have been okay for me to leave, but I stayed through even though his words beat me down for years, he never laid a finger on me, and so I thought I had to stay. That is absolutely not true. And I'm going to go a step further. If you are in a church or a religion that says that you have to stay and take that kind of stuff, leave. That is not...
That is a really terrible church and religion.
Just from a Christian worldview, just from a biblical worldview, that is absolutely not what the Bible says.
Right.
Absolutely not what the Bible says. And I think that too often, too many women and men, because the reality is there's a stigma also around men being abused in relationships as well. Sometimes they stay for too long because they don't believe the abuse has gotten, air quotes, bad enough for them to leave.
Right.
That's wrong.
Abuse is abuse is abuse.
You are worth it.
Yeah.
To leave. You are worth it to get out of a situation that is that toxic and that unhealthy. You are worth seeking justice. You are worth all of those new, fresh starts for you, for your kids, for whatever the situation is. And so I think both you and I, now my view of it was a little bit different. Let's talk about this. Divorce for you when we got married. Tell me about it. Your thoughts on divorce.
My thoughts on divorce was absolutely not ever.
Ever? In any situation?
In any situation, because...
Even including physical abuse? Even including that stuff, really?
Well, I think...
Or was that a gray area?
I think physical abuse was a gray area. I think cheating was absolutely not. But I think that even then, it was like, but maybe you could
He asked for forgiveness.
Right.
Yeah, he's gotten really involved in the church.
Right.
Oh,
and
don't get me started with that.
Right. And so I think that it's... Yeah, I think that it was a very unhealthy view of divorce. And I think I'm very glad that my view of divorce has changed.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that just such a big part of my viewpoint changing on that has been watching my friends go through these horrendous marriages and staying in them. We have a friend that's still in a horrendous marriage that we have tried to get her out of. And she just doesn't want to, because she feels like she needs to stay. And it's heartbreaking watching her. But watching these other friends who have...
Is it because she feels like she needs to stay, or she feels like she has to stay?
Isn't that the same thing?
I would say that...
What did you...
Is it because she feels like she needs to stay, or does she feel like she has to stay? Like there's not a reason, there's not a way for her to leave. Because like
I think she feels like she has to stay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like as a Christian woman, as a Christian mom, like you don't do that.
Right. Yeah.
It's better for me to stay and take the abuse than to break up a family, because God's heart is for families.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I just hate that, and it's so heartbreaking watching it. And then, but watching our friends who are now going through these divorces and wishing that they had left earlier for their sake, for their kids' sake, and having to deal with the fallout of all of that. It's heartbreaking watching that too. And I just wish that they had left earlier.
Yeah,
before any of that hurt had gotten quite as deep.
Yeah, and I think it rarely gets better. I think it just like continues to get worse. And I think for me, my view of divorce was unique when growing up. My parents got divorced when I was, I think 7 years old, somewhere in there. Or they split up when I was 7, got divorced when I was 9, something like that. But mine was interesting because my parents, so I don't remember a lot of I don't remember a healthy marriage before they got divorced, right? I remember, not a lot of good. It's not like I have a lot of great family, them married memories. But I actually remember it being better after they got divorced. And so for me, I grew up in this environment where it's man, I actually saw the benefits of divorce. I got to see a better version of my mom. I got to see my mom and dad just not in an unhealthy relationship. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up where I was man, I'm really thankful that my parents got divorced. I know that's super weird to say, but I can genuinely say I'm glad my parents got divorced. And so
when they did before it got really bad, I think.
And when they did before it got really bad, mm-hmm. and they've worked, hard. Even, when my mom was just up here, we went to dinner one night with my dad and with Susan and my mom, and we were all together and laughing, and it was fun. It's and there's not that awkward hatred, and so for me, I grew up with that as kind of the, I knew that there were situations where divorce was the right decision. I also wasn't raised in a Christian church where that divorce was super evil and never allowed.
Right.
But as I became a Christian and spent time in the church and even became a pastor, one of the things that I was always confused by was this, was the stance in a lot of places where it's no divorce at any cost. Mm-hmm. Because for me, I looked at my own life and I thought, well, actually, I don't really believe that.
Kind of disagree.
I do think that marriage is something that is absolutely worth fighting for.
I think marriage is sacred.
I think marriage is sacred. I think I am thankful that we have stuck it out. I am thankful that has not been our journey. Mm-hmm. But I do not believe that it is the kind of thing that it's well, I hope he cheats on me or I hope he hits me because then finally I could get away.
Right.
I think abuse looks a lot of different ways. I think that a lot of times men abdicate their responsibility in a marriage. And so while they are physically present, they are not present in any other way. Mm-hmm. And so I would actually make the argument that it is the man who left. It is the man who abdicated his responsibility. It was the man who abandoned his family, even though he was physically present. He was not present any other way. Yeah. And so I think that in those situations, girl, pack your shit and get out. Right. I think it's okay. And I even want to just go a step further. You and I haven't talked about this, but I think you're okay with this. If you're listening to this and this is a situation you're in and you're just man, I can't talk to people in my church about this. I can't talk to my friends about this. I can't talk to I don't have a place to help process the situation that I'm in mm-hmm. that does feel unhealthy and toxic and abusive. I want you guys to know you can email us. We, of course, like we said earlier, we encourage therapy. We encourage getting a counselor. We encourage having a professional to talk to. But there's a lot of people who we have talked to who said, I didn't know who I could talk to. I didn't know where I could go because all of my friends were his friends. Right? All of my relationships knew us as a couple and I had nowhere to go. I want you guys to know that you can email us and we will help you either get connected to someone you talk to or take the time to process this with you.
Yeah.
Because I hate the fact of thinking of somebody being stuck in that situation because they feel there is no other option. I just
feel they can't leave.
I just don't believe that's true.
Right.
I just don't believe that's true. And so the thing is the thing I wish I knew before we got married, for us, fortunately, we've never gotten to the place where we've had to have that conversation where we've talked about divorce, but we have been in the middle of so many divorces over the last number of years.
Yeah.
And they're divorces, to be honest with you, that I wish would have happened 10 years ago, or I wish would have happened 5 years ago, or I wish would have happened sooner than it did, because so much extra damage was done because friends of ours just felt stuck. And we have watched people that we love be absolutely destroyed because they didn't know that this actually was an option, especially in faith communities.
Yeah.
Gosh, what a heavy ending to the podcast. Holy Moses, you guys.
Jeez.
Here's the thing. I don't think there's a way to talk about it without it being heavy.
I know.
But I think it's important to talk about. I
do too. I think, especially in the faith community, it's such a taboo topic. And I think that it needs to be something that is talked about. And I think that if you are being abused in any way, shape, or form, get out. I just don't think that you have to wait for anybody to hit you or cheat on you to feel justified of getting out. I don't think that that's okay. And
here's the thing. Getting out can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Getting out doesn't have to mean that the first step is divorce. There's lots of other steps that can be taken. There's lots of other checkpoints along the way. But I think that it does mean that action has to be taken.
Yeah.
Because that is a point in a relationship that is just not okay. That's a point that's just not okay. Oh. I need a drink.
Remember when you said duty?
Yeah. I do remember when I said duty. But you guys, that is just a handful of things that we have learned over our 19 and a half years of marriage. Things that we wish we knew. Like I said, a lot of those we knew in part. A lot of those we knew in theory. But I think all of those are things that we have grown in our understanding of how important those are.
And I think that we will continue to grow in our understanding of how important these things are.
I hope so.
As our marriage grows.
I hope we do. Yeah. I think that if we said, oh no, I knew it all. There's nothing that I wish I knew. I had it all. I hit a home run. I would be so concerned.
Right.
I would be so concerned.
Right.
It's really? Me, when I was 25 when we got married, as a 25-year-old guy who had never been married, I knew it all? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Because again, I've said this before in podcasts, and I just think that if you're not growing and changing, that means you're dead. Anything that's not growing and changing is dead. And so I don't think that's healthy. I think you need to be growing and changing.
There you go. So you guys, I don't have any questions for you. A lot of times on the podcast, we will ask you a question at the end. I don't have any. I know this was kind of a heavy conversation, a long conversation. Yeah. My gosh, you can tell we haven't recorded a podcast in a month because we have so much to say.
We have a lot of words.
We've been starting it for a month for you guys. But again, in future weeks, we're going to try to record one of these every week where we look at things I wish I knew before from different aspects of life. And I'm super excited to talk more about this in coming weeks. You guys, we love you. We are so glad to be back. We have I'll say this. I don't want to speak for both of us because we didn't talk about this, but I have genuinely missed recording the podcast.
I have too.
Yeah, this has been...
It is 11:45 p.m. and I'm tired. I'm yawning.
So let's end this bad boy. All right, friends, we love you so very much. Thanks for listening. We will see you next week on the LeggLife podcast.
Yeah.
Bye.